Let's find common ground. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Florian Glatz, and today I'm joined by my guest, Katharina Klimkeit, a founder, entrepreneur in the digital and now Web3 space. And we're going to explore what that means and where her journey is taking her. Katharina, welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself to our guest.
Thank you, Florian. Happy to be here. Yeah, my name is Katharina. I am from Hamburg, Germany, and I am the co founder of a fact checking platform called Facts for Friends. I have a background in business entrepreneurship. I studied innovation management in Stockholm. I have a lot of experience in consulting firms, which I happily dropped because turns out the startup world is more for me. And yeah, have a lot of experience also in founding businesses in the consumer fields, but now I am venturing into the Bitcoin industry, which I'm sure we can talk about a little bit more in a bit.
Thank you so much. And there is a lot to talk about. Before we dive into it, I tend to ask my guests on just a few questions about this whole topic of Web3, because that's obviously something that is also dear to my heart. And with the Common Ground platform, we're trying to build some sort of tooling that allows people to get more familiar with it and sort of build up some sort of social presence in Web3. So I'd love to get your feeling on where do we stand in this next evolution of the internet. And I think in your case, maybe the question is even warranted. Is Web3 even something that we want? Is Web3 the right path to take in order to conquer this sort of better utopian form of the internet that we're all sort of striving for? So, what is your feeling on Web3? Where are we?
I think it's a very exciting time. I mean, the amount of projects and startups and tokens that are just shooting out of the ground is really has been insane to see and watch, and also some disappearing, which is a natural course for an industry that is trying to find its place. So I am very confident and very positive about Web3, although I will say it I don't think it has found all of its use cases yet. So I do think that we're still in a phase of exploration of really trying to figure out where does it make sense to implement, decentralized technologies, where does it make sense to work with blockchain technology, and where maybe it doesn't. So because not everything needs to be tokenized, and not everything, needs to be a Web3 startup or project. So I think we're in a phase where we're sort of maturing a little bit, but we're still figuring out what makes sense, what's actually some use cases that really benefit, the project and the users respectively. And so yeah, I mean, I am very fond of blockchain. I am very, positive on decentralization. I hold it very near and dear to my heart. So I hope to see just it maturing. I hope to see more use cases where, we even reach more mass adoption, because what I see is it is a bubble. Like, I've been around for quite a while in this industry, and it seems like, oh my God, it's growing. Now the bigger brands are joining. They're having Web3 NFT projects, whatever. But um, it still is a bubble, and sometimes I just have to take a step back and realize, okay, we're really not, on the curve of mass adoption just yet. So I think it'll be interesting which projects and which approaches will take us there. And I don't think we found the ones that will just yet. We're just in that exploration phase, I think.
That's a very good and diplomatic answer that you're giving. And what I've encountered in terms of criticism of this industry over and over is that critics are saying, well, you're always saying that it's still early, that it's a very sort of young technology, but you guys have been at this for over a decade now. and you still don't know what the use cases of it are, is it possible that there are simply no use cases and you should just, go looking for a real job? Um, do you think that that it just takes too long, or do you think this is to be expected? How is your feeling on this? Why are we still in this exploration phase of use cases? Why haven't we had a breakthrough like the AI people now have it with these GPT generative AIs, and so they seem to have found their use case. Why don't we find it? What's the deeper issue here?
That's a really good question. So, I will say as a disclaimer, I'm not that active in the whole Web3 and NFT industry, but more leaning towards Bitcoin. And I don't mean crypto; I mean Bitcoin. I think it's important for me to point that out to differentiate. And looking at Bitcoin, I mean, it's a monetary system that's still very young. So it's, what is it, 12 or 14 years old. So in terms of, if you look at the history of money, that's a very short amount of time for already, quite some adoption. Um, but with all the other Web3 and NFTs, I really don't know. I mean, it's unfair to say that there hasn't been successful projects, although which company was it that just, was it Facebook or something, that canceled its own metaverse project or something. Um, so I think there's a lot of clout. There's a lot of virality. There's a lot of hype around certain things that maybe aren't hype worthy, which were created, through communities, through maybe some Twitter, anonymous Twitter accounts that really have huge reach, which I feel like with this industry, it's two steps ahead and then one step backwards, because man, crypto's been struggling with FTX, with, now Binance is being sued. There's just been attacks left and right, and there's been, fraudulent people that are not really helping the industry at all. So I think, um, just because there was an opportunity for so many people to really make a lot of money in a short amount of time, it also attracted a lot of fraudsters and, just some dumping some schemes that, yeah, weren't really helping. So I think that took a lot of attention and a lot of also building time away from the actual use cases. I don't think it's a good excuse though. So um maybe yeah, like I said before, I don't think everything needs to be tokenized. I don't think everything needs to be a Web3 startup or project. So it's really about finding, where does it actually add benefits to the users, or does it actually make sense to implement blockchain technology? And so I think we have to kind of take a step back and focus on some of the fundamentals, and then hopefully implementing them. And then sometimes there's, projects or use cases where it's not helping to say, oh, we're a Web3 startup, but you actually just make use of the technology. So it's in the background. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I feel like we're still, trying to dodge everything that's come at this industry in the shortest amount of time, while at the same time, building. And now in crypto, we're in a bear market, or have been for a while. Maybe we're out of it now. I don't know. We'll see. But bear markets are for building, so I think that's good when, some of the hype settles down and you can kind of focus and look at some of the fundamentals again and start really building technology that's really going to help a lot of people and projects. So maybe we need more bear markets. I don't know.
That's a good one. You just made a remark that I find really interesting and probably not so familiar to many people because it's been mixed up for years now. But you said very clearly you're interested in Bitcoin, not in crypto. What is the difference between Bitcoin and crypto from your point of view?
Well, so isn't there like a meme or saying that if your coin has a CEO, it's not decentralized? um, so I mean, the difference with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is like I think it's like the older, uglier, uncool brother, and there's a lot of like flashy Doge coins and Shiba Inu coins, that just were able to create a lot of hype. But the true value in Bitcoin is its decentralization. So, there's no intermediary. So, what it is, it allows for peer to peer transactions. So, whenever I would do a remittance, there's like a bank in between. And like, I get asked by my bank so often if, I'm trying to make a wire transfer, why or where it's going or where it's coming from, where it's just like, okay, but this should be my money. So Bitcoin really allows for true decentralization. So there's nobody that's going to ask you questions. You can send any amount to any other address around the world, so it's borderless, and there's a limited supply, which is also very different to some shit coins, which I'm going to call, but also to fiat, so to the dollar or euro. And that's like a very, I think, Western approach to it as well, because what Bitcoin is also allowing is for unbanked people to have access to transfer value across time and space. So I think I just saw a stat the other day that about 1.7 billion adults across the world are unbanked, which is just like an insane number. So they don't have access to bank accounts. They can't open a bank account, which is just like, me living in Germany, it's just unbelievable to even think about. But so Bitcoin is a tool that's actually also just democratizing, access to funds and value. And well, yeah, so the difference to other coins, there's limited supply. Like I said, there's been so many ICOs, so like coins that are being initiated or put on the market are tokens that don't really have a cap. So, they're or a certain percentage, lies with a VC firm at launch, and then they pump it and dump it. So that's where these pump and dump schemes come from. So, Bitcoin being so decentralized is really the truest and best form of money that I could think of. So I think it's important, like I said, with all the FTX scams and everything, and coins going to literally zero, because I think there's now over 20,000 coins or something. It's an insane, like anyone can launch a coin nowadays. So Bitcoin, with its transparency and its proof of work system and peer to peer network, is really honestly for me where it's at to actually, bank the unbanked and democratize the access.
Now, there are a lot of critics also of Bitcoin within the crypto and Web3 space. And they often say, well, it's true, Bitcoin had this amazing genesis story. It doesn't have a CEO. The founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, just disappeared really early on and let the project develop on its own, which are all positives in a sense. But then it also left a void for others to fill. And nowadays, it seems that there are certain groups that have a bigger influence on Bitcoin's roadmap than others. Just recently read by someone that sort of this Bitcoin Core developer group, which sort of is determining the future of the Bitcoin protocol much more than anyone else. Um, do you think Bitcoin, just by virtue of having no CEO, has the better governance system to ensure, its future development? Or does a project like Ethereum, which I think is also hard to call a shitcoin, like others, maybe like a Shiba Inu coin, do you think maybe they have maybe just more dynamism in the and more structure in how the protocol is being governed? Are you sometimes envious of what the Ethereum people have established, or do you think no, actually, it's a good thing that Bitcoin doesn't have this sort of more pronounced, governance structure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a two-edged sword, so I think there's benefits to either setup. So, with Ethereum or whatever, it feels like Bitcoin is always a little bit slower, just because of its governance, and just because you need 51% or more of the network to agree whenever there is a change. On the roadmap, or you saw in block size wars. So if people try to change something, you need the majority of the network to agree, which is becoming increasingly harder the more decentralized it is becoming. And so I think it helps just in maintaining its true value and its true use case for Bitcoin specifically. But I could see for other coins or projects like Ethereum that in order to be able to move maybe a little bit quicker, it's good to have some sort of centralized governance. I think again it's two different use cases. With Ethereum, you can you put NFTs on it. The layer twos look very different. And well, with Bitcoin now, there's been ordinals, so that's been a huge discussion. um, but that's not to say that sometimes I think Bitcoiners are also standing in the way of Bitcoin adoption and Bitcoin progression, because there's these, we call them Bitcoin maxis or Bitcoin maximalists, um, that just are like Bitcoin is the only coin, and they don't understand anyone that would invest in other projects or in other coins. And they're really intense sometimes. um, they put bold statements like any sort of tax is theft, and are very much against the government. So I think those kind of people are maybe sometimes roadblocks in increasing adoption and Bitcoin awareness. It's not really helping the use case. But um then again, Bitcoin is about ultimate freedom and ultimate accountability and responsibility for everyone participating, for each individual person. So um I think in its nature, it's normal that how Bitcoin is built and set up, it's just going to move slower. But then again, for its specific use case, I don't think it's really that much of a problem. Whereas I would see, with other Web3 projects, I can see why it's maybe good to have some sort of centralized governance. Although there's, DAOs, which you're very, very much involved with, coming and growing. Although I do think from what I'm seeing is that even DAOs need some sort of centralized governance to a certain degree, at least, in order to just move things forward. So yeah, I think it's the way it is. Bitcoin is more decentralized and thus a lot slower. But then again, for its specific use case, I don't really think that's an issue.
To finish the chapter on Bitcoin, I want to ask you on this interesting situation that recently happened, and everybody who's on Twitter in the Bitcoin or Web3 bubble probably saw it. That a pretty famous crypto or Bitcoin believer and influencer called Balaji made a pretty bold bet that in the next 90 days, the US dollar is going to hyperinflate and Bitcoin is going to become the new world reserve currency. This was all triggered by this banking crisis that was sort of unfolding at the time in the United States, with the Federal Reserve stepping in and guaranteeing some sort of depositor funds and so on. So it was pretty chaotic. I feel it has calmed down since, but Balaji has made, I think, a $2 million bet, like with two different people, about $1 million of this event occurring. Sort of the US dollar really going to zero and Bitcoin going to, I think, 1 million per coin or something like this. First of all, do you believe that this is going to happen? Do you think it was a good idea for Balaji to do this? Did it send the right signal? Or did it just maybe portray Bitcoiners as lunatics to the wider public. What's your feeling on this one?
Yeah, it's interesting to to see those kind of things unfold. So, well, personally, I am a believer that yes, Bitcoin does have the potential. This is not financial advice. To reach $1 million per Bitcoin eventually. Although that being said, at that point, the $1 million will probably not be what $1 million is right now, as $1 million right now is not what it was a couple of years ago. So I think whether it's going to happen in these 90 days. I think we're a couple of days in already. It's probably very unlikely. um, but it's, I mean, I'm not a financial expert, but from what I'm seeing is that we did pile up an unsustainable amount of debt, and that the only way forward is to inflate out of this debt, by debasing the currency. So I think that's what we're seeing with the banking crisis and with the dollars. And even Lagarde, from the Central European Bank, said herself that they're trying to close the escape routes. So I think these kind of, bets or whatever it is, maybe do help to just shine a light on the current financial system and the fiat system, and actually makes people maybe put in a bit more research or effort to understand, why there's such smart people in this industry that are willing to make such, bets, which maybe this one, was a bit over the top. But I think the message is there that, have a look at what's happening in the financial industry. Have a look at what is happening with your money. Can you buy as much as you were able to buy 2, 3, 4, or 5 years ago? Is inflation maybe, and now I sound like a Bitcoin maxi, but is inflation maybe, a different sort of theft, because just with the same amount of money, you're not able to purchase as much anymore. So it's really about debasing, the fiat currencies. And so maybe some people look at it and they're just like, oh, the Bitcoiners, they're crazy. But maybe for some people, it's actually encouraging to look at what would move people to actually go into bets like that and make bold statements, that seem quite absurd, at least for the time being. But then again, we live in a crazy world. So we'll see in 90 days or even less. But just in a longer time frame, I do think that Bitcoin does have the potential to actually become the reserve currency, just because it's capped because of the limited supply. It's unlike anything else. Even gold has, an inflation rate, which is minor, but it's there.
Mm. Um, you have proven to be really, I think, pretty pretty bold in the bets that you take, and in the end turn out to be quite prescient in sort of how you look at the future. I'm thinking of your fact checking website that you started years ago, and I just recently watched some German talk shows, and they were all concerned about these new AI capabilities and the effect it has on the trustworthiness of information we find online. And looking at this, I do want to believe what you're saying in terms of where Bitcoin might be headed. So you seem to have some deeper connection to or some ability to actually project into the future and sort of see what is actually the important stuff. Um, Now, I want to dive a little bit into this fact checking sort of problem that you've recognized really early as a key problem for the information society that we're living in. Um, can you tell us a little bit of your journey that brought you there and what exactly you've been building in this area?
Yeah, I would love to. So I started Facts for Friends. It's now 3 years ago. So COVID has been around exactly 3 years, because That's when I initially launched the project, was in March of 2020, just when, we had the first lockdown, and I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I'm a type of person, that really wants to be productive as much as I can possibly be. So I was working in the home office, and yeah, just saw so many people being so unsure of what to believe. There's news coming out, every second about updates. And then my dad got like, he was like on a WhatsApp group with like a bunch of people he didn't really know, and they were just, sending these false claims around, which you could tell with just a very little research that they're false. But still, he was, a little bit unsure of what to make of it. It's just like, if you can hold your breath for 10 seconds, you're not infected with COVID or something. And this was in early days. So I kind of just wanted to, tackle the issue of people getting to reliable information in a really short amount of time, because in this attention economy, any article that's like longer than 2 paragraphs is too long already for a lot of people, especially for younger people, that would or should read journalistic contents and outputs. But the attention span is just it's just decreasing from here. So with the rise of TikTok and Instagram and everything's short video. And so what we came up with is kind of like a platform where fact checks from different sources across the world were represented and presented in like fact snacks, so like in very short snippets of information, so it's like bite size. So people don't have to read the long articles anymore. And yeah, that worked really well for a long amount of time, and attracted a lot of interest, because I think just fact checking in itself is just a very boring, um it's just very dry.
So I think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of the attention span problem. I think people have gotten used to just scrolling through headlines, and they do this increasingly not on reputable news sites anymore. Although I think we can also debate what's actually a reputable news site in, in 2023. Um, but they do this on social media, where there is no curator except for an algorithm, and the algorithm typically optimizes for engagement and clicks, which often are not, well written and sort of reputable sources behind it, but more like, whatever works. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Did you have any sort of crowdsourcing mechanism behind this? How did you find these, bite-sized, trustworthy um, news sources? How did you solve this fundamental problem of which information can I trust? Did you have an editorial team doing this? What was your approach to solving that?
Yeah, we tried everything basically. So we started off, because Facts for Friends was originally built within a hackathon, and then I was just like, oh no, we can't just drop this idea, because we the need for it was there, and it would have been a shame to just keep it like as a weekend project, which it could have easily been. But so I took matters into my own hands, and we had a lot of volunteers. There's everyone was in lockdown, everyone wanted to help as much as they could. So our approach was, because we had to make sure, like, what is like a rule that's understandable for everyone to kind of increase trustworthiness and legitimacy. Which sources do we work with, like, because we didn't do the fact checking ourselves, because that takes a lot of effort and time, and is really just like a journalistic skill. So we used already existing fact checks, but then the question was, okay, which sources do we use, which do we not use, and with what kind of justifications. And we ended up just working with sources from the International Fact Checking Network, from by the Poynter Institute in the US. So basically we had, as standard that we could hold ourselves accountable to, and that users could, transparently look at and see, okay, because those sources, they're being tested once a year, so it's, they have to work for being part of the IFCN once a year, I think, or once every other year. Um, so we worked with already existing fact checks, but yeah, and we saw ourselves as a bridge between existing fact checking content and articles and social media, and especially younger generations, because the content was out there. It's just it wasn't reaching anyone, and that's really where we saw our role. So we didn't do the fact checking ourselves. We worked with these sources and then reproduced the articles into fact snacks. We used some tools to extract the most important parts, but then always have, a person looking over it at the end of the day, because that's just the journalistic standard. And even like 1, 2, or 3 years ago, AI wasn't where it is now. So I think now, because now I'm slowly moving out of that project and handing it to my co-founder, who's a journalist. I think she's using a lot of AI tools already to kind of summarize and then, bring that to social media. And yeah, we worked a lot with actually Instagram, but also TikTok, because what we ended up doing is taking these articles and making short vertical videos out of them, which is, I think, really, really the deciding point of, we were able to reach so many people within such a short amount of time, on just German speaking areas, just by having videos and TikTok. And the fact checking articles would have never reached those people, and not the sizes of the audience in any way. So I think that's really where our value add lies in, just bringing the content that is out there to the people, to the audiences, to just people that don't even know, which fact checking sites to look up, which I didn't know at the time either, by the way. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think being this bridge between, traditional journalists who are writing super long articles, which might have a lot of information value, but then the younger generation that prefers video content, short form content on their typical social networks, is really an important gap to fill. So thank you on behalf of, I guess, the rest of the German speaking world for making this job. And now, of course, I'm curious to, since you're a Web3 enthusiast and knowledgeable in this area, I'd love, of course, to explore with you what a potential bridge could look like between these two worlds. I know from conversations in the Web3 space that for years people have been considering, well, how do we actually solve the trustworthiness of news, maybe with this new technology? In particular, this idea of digital identities, this idea of cryptographic signatures. And I see it re-emerge now in recent weeks because of generative AI models that are able to produce very, believable images and texts, and in the future, probably also videos. Famously, the Berlin mayor, Franziska Giffey, had a video call with a fake Vitali Klitschko, I think, which was deepfake, a real-time deepfaking the video and the voice of Klitschko, and she had no idea. And so, in a sense, it's already there. This is not some future stuff. If you had unlimited resources and, would be interested in sort of moving this fact-checking ecosystem onto a new level, how would you approach this? Do you even think this is feasible, or is this one of these instances where you would say, well, not everything has to be tokenized, not everything has to be put, in this blockchain context? Do you see bridges there? Do you find it worthy of exploring, or do you feel this is not really the application where this technology will be useful for society?
well, yeah, I did think about this quite a bit. Well, the thing is, So and the reason why I built Facts for Friends in the first place is I have a huge issue personally with censorship. So, um, I don't like it when, things are taking off of platforms because, an intuitive answer to that would be, yeah, we need stronger policies in place. We need to take the platforms accountable, hold them accountable. I mean, now that Elon Musk bought Twitter, or I think now it's the X Corp, it's not even called Twitter anymore. So he's got plans with it. Um, they've reduced their fact checking efforts and services. So I've never been a fan of censorship in that way. So I always looked at it from other perspectives, and that just naturally leads me to thinking just education and increase of media literacy will be very important. It's going to be very hard. I've seen videos where apparently like Obama says things, or on video, and or Trump, or just anyone can be a victim, honestly, from any sort of group. So it doesn't always, because there's a tendency of, yeah, fake news always originates from right wing people. It's from both sides. It's not a one way street. So um, I think we'll just have to be a lot more cautious in what we consume, because AI is just gonna get better and better. And there's images created out of nowhere, out of just like text prompts. There will be videos created. Um, and maybe there's a way of, because what Web3 or blockchain is good at, is verification. So maybe there will be systems in place to implement verification, processes or tools into platforms or something. Um, I don't have the one solution, one fits all solution for it. I think it's going to be ongoing. I think just creating the awareness, don't believe everything you read. The awareness, AI is going to get better and better. Maybe you're more into policies and everything. Maybe there will be policies, although it's also a fine line to walk in. You want to push innovation, you want to push, for example, the EU as an innovative location. On the other hand, you have AI that can actually become really harmful in a very short amount of time. And so I don't know. I think Italy just banned Chat GPT. That's not the way to go, probably. I mean, there's VPNs, you can you can find your way around it. But um I think maybe just using blockchain technology to see where maybe content originates from, but or maybe not. Maybe just creating awareness, educating, improving media literacy, and just especially for younger. I think this kind of education should start in school already. I think the school system needs to you know teach kids, because we hold a lot of workshops for like younger people. um it's just important that just having the awareness that not everything that you read might be true, or that you have resources to verify on your own, and go out and check for yourself that there's these resources, there's these tools that you can use and you should use if you're unsure of something. So um it's just a wild west, and I don't think it's going to change much anytime soon. And like I said, because I'm not a fan of censorship and of creating very strict policies, which would probably be the organic route to go, and say we need to have the right policies in place, so we just yeah, create laws to, I don't know, overrule it or forbid it or just ban it overall or something, is not the way to go. So we'll just have to remain creative. And like what we try with Facts for Friends is just, how do we reach people, how do we create awareness, and just educate.
Yeah, you took it exactly in the direction that I wanted to ask, which is that if we deploy systems that would use blockchain, cryptographic signatures, and sort of these paths um, of um, of provenance for content, does it come from actually these sources, or was it sort of fake? Um, they do create also an avenue for censorship, obviously, and you mentioned that censorship is something that you're fundamentally opposed to. So it seems almost impossible to solve when you want censorship resistance, but also strong identity, I suppose. Um, we've seen Sam Altman, actually the inventor of OpenAI or founder, to launch a system called WorldCoin, which introduces biometric identity for every citizen on Earth. A lot of people take issue with this idea to scan their retina and into some special device and then upload it into the, I guess, Sam Altman cloud. I don't know exactly how it works in the back end. It's supposedly decentralized, but what does that even mean in these contexts? Um, we've seen the EU actually issue or work on new policies for strong digital identity in Europe. They want to introduce an EU wallet for every citizen by 2030. So it seems almost like we're already on this path to create strong digital identities for everybody. And then I guess the policies will follow. Um, if you had to choose one world or the other, the world of chaos, how it is sort of supposedly right now, or the world of strong identities, but then maybe this ability to really fact check, which one do you prefer? What do you think is the better compromise to make on potential censorship or on potential just disinformation, but maybe more freedom? What's your bias?
My bias is definitely more freedom. So, um, yeah, with the World Coin, that to me is just wild that people actually signed up for it. I don't know how many people they got the data, because it's like bio data. I don't know that, and then you get like a certain amount of World Coin or something for it. So that's just sketchy all around to me. But I would always choose freedom, because I think there's actually, speaking of digital identities, there's an actual ongoing and very real, and I will say it, threat, because I think it's, to me, it feels like a threat that governments issue digital identities and use blockchain technology for that, in order to have everything on the blockchain that about a person. So maybe like from your driver's license to ID number to vaccination status to the launch of CBDCs, which is like, as a Bitcoiner, is just like the most dramatic thought that there's actually governments playing around with digital currencies, the digital euro, digital anything, in order to use that technology, but then issue it from a centralized entity, such as a government. So I think that's a perfect use case for where not everything should, be a Web3 or a blockchain use case. I think there's the only benefit of a CBDC, for example, to me would be control and surveillance. So I would always choose the chaotic, the uh, uncensored, but education, uncensored reality with a lot of education, where cash is still allowed, because that's also what they're trying to. I think it's above 1,000 euros or something now. It's you're actually being involved in illegal activities if you have transactions over 1,000 euros in cash, which is just insane. It's, to me, it's all just a matter of getting as much data and information as possible about people to execute control, and to, yeah, minimize the individual. I think that's what it's really about. I think it's also some of the zeitgeist right now is that, group needs are being put over individual needs and freedoms, which I don't think is a good development. So yeah, I'm for freedom and chaos all the way.
I love this answer, and it brings me on to my sort of next topic that I want to inquire about, which is exactly what you just mentioned. You are in favor of a strong, sort of free and autonomous individual. That's sort of the the bias and preference set of preferences that you bring to the world and how you look at the world, and I suppose how you see yourself interacting with this world. And looking at your biography, I also checked out your LinkedIn prior. I could just see that you have founder of X, founder of Y, founder of Z. So you have this long history of sort of taking responsibility for yourself and creating new things in this world throughout your life, which I find extremely impressive. And maybe you can share a little bit with us what, has brought you onto this path. Where do you take this autonomy and courage from to be so responsible for yourself and not, be like, well, just looking for a job, just looking for an employer that's going to pay my salaries and so on. How many people do it? Because I feel they're probably afraid to do what you're doing. Why are you not afraid? Where do you take all of this courage and energy from?
Energy is a good point. Courage, yeah, it's come natural to me. I don't know. The first startup I founded right out of school. I think I was 18 or 19. Um, to me, I just had a conversation with a really good friend of mine the other day. We were talking about how can you maximize freedom, and what his statement was that in order to maximize my freedom, I have to take ultimate responsibility for every aspect of my life. And thinking about it, it sounds a bit paradox, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. So to me, being free is really the ultimate goal. So, as long as nobody can tell me where to be, or, what to do at certain amount of at any time of day, um, is a very strong need that I have. And speaking with a lot of friends, of course, also, that are in employed jobs and, just are happy but work for somebody else or another company, for example, is um to me that's the riskiest thing ever, because to me there's just like there's the ceiling. You don't hold equity in it. You always sell out your time, which isn't inherently bad, but I don't know. In order for me to be financially free and just mentally free as well, I try to take as much responsibility as I possibly can. And for me, putting renting out my time and working for somebody else, that just feels like a huge risk on very many different levels. I know that I'm wired a bit differently in that sense, I would say, compared to a lot of other people, but um, for me, that just the idea of creating new things that might help people and add value to this world is just the most exciting thing that there is. So, starting out new things and, creating products or services that haven't been there before is just, to me, just gets me going. It's really, really exciting. And being able to be, like a creator and not just, a consumer. Um, I find very thrilling. So I've been like that. I don't come from like an entrepreneurial family. It's very unlikely if looking at where I come from, but it's just been with me, and I think I will die on this hill. I will always create new stuff and come up with new things, just with the aim of myself being free and myself taking responsibility for everything in my life, but also for taking responsibility for things that I see that might need fixing, or where an idea could actually add value and help people and improve lives. That's just so cool.
This is such an interesting and valuable answer. Thank you for this. You said you're probably wired a bit differently than most people. Um, to me, this almost contradicts what you want to achieve, though, which is that you want all the people to take this responsibility for themselves. So, do you think it's an internal wiring? It's like your genetics or something like this that, make you be this person? Or do you think it's feasible that a majority of people or all the people at some point in the future can become this highly autonomous, self-responsible, self-directed individual in the world. Um, is that something you even care about? What is your utopia in a sense, and what is your pragmatic vision of a future that isn't censored and centralized and so on, but where maybe not everybody is wired like you? How does this work together in your mind?
I put a lot of effort into working. No, I don't want to go into metaphysics, but working with your subconscious mind.
Please do.
I'm fully into self hypnosis and all those things because I think a lot of people, um, knowingly or unknowingly, are maybe like in a mentality of I am the victim of my surroundings, or why does this always happen to me? And it's so unfair, that person always, I don't know, is lucky, or how did they do it? And why can't I do this or something? That circles back to actually being responsible for every aspect of your life, because I really do believe that you're the director, you're the script writer, and you're the actor of your own life. So um the limits we set, we foolishly believe that the limits we set ourselves are the actual limitations. And so a lot of mental work and getting rid of some barriers, some limiting beliefs, tapping into that subconscious. I can encourage everyone to get into that, because I think there's a lot of subconscious beliefs that limit a lot of people, and respectively they are unhappy with maybe some realities that they live in. And in getting rid of those and assuming as much responsibility as possible, with that I think just comes the courage, and comes the belief in yourself that you're able to do whatever you set your mind to. So yeah, that's more on the like self-improvement side. But beyond that, in regards to assuming responsibility, Bitcoin is the perfect example, because Bitcoin, you can't call like Bitcoin Central and be like, shit, I lost my seed phrases, or where did my Bitcoin go? It's peak responsibility in the financial sense, because you have to store them, be it on an exchange, which please don't, or in a cold storage, and then you are completely responsible for your keys. And that's just one aspect. And the finance is such a big aspect. If you think about it, you're just like, oh yeah, I don't need to know about this or something. But it nowadays it's just in everything. It involves everything. So um with that, it's just like taking responsibility in the financial sense, having a long time frame, and then also assuming responsibility for your other realities, which if you can just get rid of, some blockages in your subconscious, that really helps, trust me.
I love your point of view on this, and it resonates a lot with me. I've been a founder of things even before I left school. I founded my first internet startup, I think, at 14 or something like this, and with like a web design agency with a few friends. And actually, I was still studying law, but I was sort of running a co-working space in Munich where I was studying, and the people I was running this co-working space with, they were a few years older than me. They had graduated from university, and they were like designers, and they were all freelance. And to me, it was the most natural thing to just work, as a contractor, sort of this sort of gig economy type. It's sort of what I've seen as the most natural path, and it was immediately after leaving university. It's what I did. I've never applied for a job in my life, and so it resonates a lot with me what you say. But then I would say a critic would say, well, you guys are pretty damn privileged. Isn't that, aren't you speaking from a position of privilege actually? And I can say for myself, yeah, I was certainly privileged. I knew I had a family in the background. I had supportive parents. They had surplus cash. There wasn't, a shortage of money and so on. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I can, I'm trying this out. And if it doesn't work, I can, always call my parents and be like, hey, I fucked up. I don't know about your family history at all, but it feels like it's also a sort of a privileged position if you're taking this path. Would you agree, or would you say, well, actually, no, it's more fundamental than this?
Definitely both, I would say. So I 100% have a supportive family as well. They're just like, oh, whatever. We're here. You can't fall, further than where we are. And so I do definitely see the privilege. I mean, just living in Germany as well, you get opportunities and everything. At the same time, I do think it's a bit more complicated than that because there's also people in our position that are, privileged in that sense. They don't do that kind of thing. They don't have that mentality. They don't have the mindset. And then there's, there's a bunch of examples, hundreds of examples. Like I just listened to an audiobook. I don't know if you know Naval. He's the founder of, I think, Angelus or something. He, one of the most insane, most impressive dudes in the VC world, and just one successful company after another, and just angel investor. He's just impressive. And he grew up impoverished, just being raised by a single mother. So just as an example, I think yes, there's definitely the realities of where you are, what kind of support system you have, how financially stable you are. On the other hand, I come back to the mindset. So I think impossible, I truly believe impossible is really, really nothing. Like if you can think it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So it it's probably about, for people that are in less privileged locations or just environments or setups, it's just would be a very different path and probably a lot more struggle along the way, which I don't want to reduce or mitigate in any way. But I believe it's all possible. It's all, just a question of mindset and what do you actually truly believe you can achieve for yourself, and then that can be your reality. So yes, we're very fortunate, and I see that. And still, I have my struggles, and it's still a lot of hard work, either way. uh, but then again, there's maybe even people with, even that are in more privileged situations that don't go out and are like, I want to build stuff, I want to improve the world however I can, but settle in one way or another. So there's no one fits all kind of answer, I think. But I definitely do feel privileged at the end of the day. Yes, just I can have a bank account.
Yeah,
1.7 billion
yeah,
adults can't. So
it's true.
that
Now,
alone is insane.
to go full circle, you're now embarking on a new venture, actually. So you're becoming a founder again, and it's probably, attached with a lot of insecurities again, a lot of unknowns. And take us on this journey. What is your plan? What are you doing? And maybe share along the way, what are your struggles, but also how do you intend to solve them? And I'm sure a bunch of listeners will be inspired by, I mean, your personality, your character, but also maybe learning from how you actually solve the problems that you encounter, and how you make the things you think in your head ultimately hold them in your hand.
A lot of hypnosis, but also yeah. So I am launching a new venture which is called Orange Society. Orange for Bitcoin. It's very obvious, at least to Bitcoiners, which is an agency for where it's Orange Society is supposed to be like a boutique branding, marketing, communications agency for Bitcoin related businesses and sectors. So um Bitcoin has long been misrepresented and has, like misunderstood, and it has an image problem, especially in the media and the general public. And I kind of want to come in and change that by trying to bring in new narratives, new perspectives, and also design approaches to the industry. So, with that, I look at that as my contribution to the industry. So, I have a background in a bit of branding and marketing, and I feel like I have two alter egos. So I have like the crypto Bitcoin Katarina, and then the professional Katarina that's like co-founded these companies. But I've been in the Bitcoin space for it's been 10 years now, so for a really long time. And I finally see now an opportunity where I want to bring, my passion and interest, which is Bitcoin, merge that with just my professional work. And so yeah, I want to build the agency. um I look at, a lot of crypto and Web3 projects that are able to create, more virality. They're able to bring it more into the mainstream that Bitcoin is able to, or that Bitcoin related companies and businesses are able to. So I just see a lot of potential in. I really say like rebranding Bitcoin and making Bitcoin more en vogue in order to reach new people, new users, new audiences, because to me it's the question of how do we now get into the next tier of adoption? How do we now get more into the mainstream? And to me that is actually by going through communication, branding, marketing. Yeah, like I said, rebranding it, making it more vogue. We have to think about new approaches, how we can make it more attractive to people. There's so many educational resources out there. I don't think that's really the issue, because like I don't know how Visa works, but I use it just because it's very easy to use. So I think we can maybe shift some narratives and some perspectives and just really help Bitcoin related companies and individuals and initiatives to position themselves and, yeah, ultimately move to mass awareness, brand awareness, mass adoption. And yeah, so I'm starting out right now. It's the most exciting times, I think, when you're just like, you pretty much have a blank canvas, and but you have this vision and this idea, and then it's just like, okay, here's where I want to go. How do I get there? And there's no playbook. I mean, I think AI will, disrupt a lot of things. So right now I'm just working on incorporating as much as possible, because I don't think it's gonna just get rid of as many jobs as maybe people are saying, but I think people will take your jobs that learn how to leverage maybe AI a lot sooner. So that's what I'm trying to do, and yeah, it's very exciting. We're preparing for the Bitcoin conference in Miami, which is in May. It's like the for Bitcoiners, it's like one of the bigger events. So we're hoping to launch then, and meet a lot of cool people, and just, yeah, bring like a fresh breeze into the industry.
Really interesting. And I have so many questions about it. But first, I want to respond by saying I can feel the energy and I can feel like it resonates with me because, on the one hand, Bitcoin is one of the most successful memes, ever created. It has, I think, millions, maybe billions of people have probably heard of Bitcoin, way more than, Ethereum, which is sort of the second biggest ecosystem. And then I think, there are it's a long, long space until the next maybe project comes that in terms of number of people that have heard of it. So I think Bitcoin is, on the one hand, very successful, but then I would also agree with you it has a massive image problem, not least because of, I think, Bitcoin maximalists who have become sort of this toxic group of people. At least they have been perceived as very toxic through their social media presence and so on. But probably this is from someone inside the bubble. Not sure outside the bubble people would even say this. They probably didn't hear of maximalism in the first place. But um, um, so it does make a lot of sense to me. Um, Now, from many conversations I've had with people, both on this podcast, but also generally on conferences, a lot of people are currently thinking about how to bring the next billion into the crypto ecosystem. And consensus seems to be that, well, we need easier tooling. So we need, to figure out how to do wallets differently. And then, people are thinking about social recovery and all kinds of schemes to sort of make the wallet not a wallet anymore. Now, I have the feeling this is actually not where you want to take it. My feeling is that you're quite happy with, a simple seed phrase that you put somewhere. What you want to do is you want to brand this in a way that having a seed phrase is sexy, or like is desirable, is cool, or something like this. How do you know? Do you look at this adoption problem? Is it more of the branding and making it look desirable, or is it about fundamental technological change to whatever make the onboarding different?
Truthfully, I think it's both. So I don't think I think utility and usability and UX UI is so important because nowadays everything is so optimized on the internet that like even if you wait for a web page to load for more than 3 seconds, you're very likely to just be like, ah, never mind, So everything needs to be as easy as possible. So I do believe that we very fundamentally should still look at how do we make things as easy and simply and usable as we possibly can while not removing the underlying technologies and underlying essential um, systems that are in place, as for example holding your private keys, which will probably remain that way. You won't change that much fundamentally, but you have to make that as easy as possible. So I'm very hopeful that also in the Bitcoin industry we're still working on making things much easier to use with the Lightning Network. I think there's so much potential in it. um, and we just have to make that as easy, but then comes in we have to let people know about this, and we have to let the mainstream be aware that even if we don't look at the fundamentals of why Bitcoin is superior to Ethereum or other coins or even fiat to the US dollar, but maybe it's about, look, with Lightning you can pay with much less fees, or it's much quicker, it's much more convenient than even using your credit card or something. So without going into the depths of the technology and the system underlying it, because I think that is it's a nice thought that actually everyone will put that much you know time and effort into understanding. People are not financially literate, like that's just the reality of things. So I think in order to, like you said, get the next, what was it, 100 million or something,
Billion, of course,
next
billion.
billion, let's work with that to get the next billion into to onboard them, we have to pick them up where they're at. And I think, or my approach would be through unusual collaborations, through unprecedented designs that we haven't seen in this very tech bro heavy industry. Innovative marketing approaches, maybe even looking towards what's already working in lifestyle areas and fashion areas, to kind of get that technology to the people in a way that they understand and in the way that they want to use it, maybe for different reasons, but at the end of the day the results are the same. So I think it's both is very important. I'm going to focus on more the branding and communication side of things, but um, please, developers and Bitcoin core team and everyone that's building like on layer twos and make it as easy as possible because it just, um, get us the use cases, and we'll market and brand them so that actually we create so much brand awareness that we get the next 100 million billion. Why
Brilliant.
do I reduce it?
I don't know. You seem to be less
My
optimistic.
subconscious. No, we're thinking bigger, bigger, bigger.
Awesome, Katharina. Before we close this off, what are your maybe top tips to aspiring founders inside or maybe even outside of Bitcoin um, to achieve their personal dream and reach their success? You've obviously done this many times now. You've been vastly successful with some ventures. Um, is there anything you can share, or is this fundamentally impossible? What would you give, and maybe in particular even women, since obviously you bring that in addition to all your success also to the table. You're doing this all as a, I would say, minority in the tech sector. What can you share?
Yeah, I think two aspects of it. So first of all, purchase the book The Genie Within. It's about reprogramming your. It's by Harry Carpenter. It's the best book I've read. I've read it, I think, 3 times now, and that's just like the self-improvement work of how to rewire your brain into actually taking responsibility and making the impossible possible. But that's, again, I'm moving into the metaphysics side of things. But other than that, I think talk to people, like, for example, for crypto, like Twitter is so valuable. There's some Twitter threads that you don't even have to go to university to study anymore. There's so many great resources I really like, and that's what Common Ground is also doing. There's so many communities out there. Join different Discords or Slack channels. Look for whatever it is you want to build in which field or area. um, and there will probably be a community for that, which I have only positive experiences from. Really, also, even like in the journalism fact checking industry, through and through positive experiences, as well as in Bitcoin. There's these groups, there are these people that are interested, that contribute in their free time, or just would like to exchange with like-minded people. Also for founders, it's the same thing. For female founders, there's groups. Grace is really great in Berlin. I can highly recommend to kind of surround yourself with people that maybe are very like-minded, but also maybe have done what you plan on doing. I think that's really interesting. I really think it's interesting to look at personalities or startups that have done similar things to what you're trying to do, and then look at where they're coming from, maybe do some backward engineering. Because most likely someone out there will have done something very similar, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. There's certain playbooks that maybe will help you also in your approach. So yeah, looking for help. I do write on LinkedIn. I just write people up. They're all so happy to help. People really want to help each other at the end of the day. So I think taking away that fear and just starting out conversations, surrounding yourself with like-minded people, really helps to also keep the motivation high. Because if you start out on something, and you sometimes don't see the light, it's, that's really where, if you then keep going, that's where the good stuff happens. So yeah, just get out there and be bold, because we're on a floating rock in space, and it's quite cool that we're alive. So there's not much to lose in that sense.
Awesome. Katharina, this has been extremely inspiring and informative and educational and just so good in so many ways. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your perspective on this world, on this crazy floating rock in space with us. It's been super valuable, and I definitely want to have you on this podcast again. Maybe in a year after you've been on your journey with your design and marketing agency in the Bitcoin space for a while, to sort of check in and see
Yeah.
what you've learned, what worked, what didn't work, right? And yeah, good luck on your journey. very happy to have had you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Florian, and also thank you for everything that you put in to make the EU an attractive location, and for all that you did for, you're like the OG in, crypto in Europe. So thank you for just sticking with it and, doing really your big part in helping this industry. I see it and it's a lot appreciated. I have a bunch of friends that know your name that are like, oh my God, the blockchain lawyer. So thank you, actually, because you've been at it for much longer.
Thank you so much. That's good to hear. And yeah, I don't know what else I would be doing. This is the most fulfilling work that I can be doing. So I feel we're both on our path, and I'm glad our paths have crossed finally. We probably could have been having these conversations years ago already, but happening now. It's awesome.